Hi there, I'm Dani Henderson. Welcome back to my disclosure channel. We're disclosing astrology today. Where are we with the astrology of the world? The best astrologer I know is my lovely dear friend, George H. Lewis. Welcome, George. How are you, my darling?
Really well, Danny. It's great to be back. Lots has happened. I don't think we've chatted since before the election. So here we are in 2025,
Oh,
2025. It's a year of culmination. It's a year, it's nine in numerology.
9 years.
So it's like completion, isn't it?
Completion of cycles, of systems, all the rest of it. So we're going to talk about the moon and Aries and the 19th cycle and the 19-year cycle. And we haven't got together since just before the inauguration where we did a beautiful drop together and you were giving us your insight there astrologically as to what that was, what was that was imbuing. We're going to cover North Node, full moon, Aries, fire and water, Mars and Pluto. So George H. Lewis, please, the floor is yours, my love.
Well, I think we're now, as we make this recording on the 10th of January, we've just experienced this opposition between Mars and Pluto, which actually, because of the retrograde cycles, it plays out for three times. I mean, the first was just before the election, the second is now, and the final one is around, I think, the 24th of April. And this is a very strong sense of polarization, which needs to be integrated. And also, when it comes to the full moon, which I'll talk about a bit later, is when you feel a full moon, obviously, is an opposition between the sun and the moon. So here we have the Mars Pluto opposition. Mars is passion, energy, drive, willpower. Pluto is tectonic, deep, unconscious, seismic. Not only will we see it play out, within nature itself, looking at the fires, looking at the water, but we also see it playing out in ourselves. So constantly I'm reminding people, like I'm reminding myself, is when we feel this tension, we feel this almost inner aggression, take it into the gym, but more take it into nature. Go and go barefoot in the ground, do the breath work, do some physical exercise. I know it's winter in the northern hemisphere, but so we can't go gardening unless we've got greenhouses, but try and get into the earth. I mean, it's so important. This whole journey for us in this civilization is our return to nature. It really is. I mean, you've got some plants behind you. I'm in the North Carolina mountains, the Cherokee Mountains. The more we can reconnect to nature, the more we can reconnect to our higher self and not be manipulated into the Homo Borg genetic frequency. We can see truth. We can say no. We have better boundaries because we're conscious, we're living, we're organic. And so I think a lot of what's shifting in the next, really for many years to come as Pluto's in Aquarius, but particularly now with this opposition of Mars, Pluto, and the full moon, it's asking us to really get back into the organic.
Thank you for mentioning my beautiful plants behind me. I'm certainly very passionate about nature, madly, crazily, much so. In fact, yesterday I bought myself a portable greenhouse. I was with my mum. I'm like, oh my God, mum, look at that. She's like, oh, don't. I'm like, oh no, look at that. I've already got a greenhouse in my gardens, and now I bought
It's
another
really,
portable. There's something so exciting about growing your food, about growing plants, about germinating, about seeing beautiful, beautiful herbs come and smell, and rosemary and basil, and oh my goodness, it's so wonderful. As this earth is so wonderful, but this earth has gone through such changes, and there's so much emotion, and it's so tumultuous, and so many people are losing friendships and falling away from each other, and they're hurting and they're not realizing why they're hurting, and there's so many reasons why we separate from friends we've loved, and we can't always understand each other. And I understand this has happened to me several times over the last couple of years where people I've loved, I just drifted from, and words have been said and hurt has happened, and we don't always know why. But I send them love, I send them all love, and does this have anything to do with the Pluto Aquarius energy, why people's friendships are tested so much?
yeah. It definitely has something to do with Pluto going into Aquarius, but it also has. It's not just that. astrology is very complex. I think it's also to do with our planetary consciousness, and there are many ways we can see that. Whether it's we're moving through a different area of the galaxy, the photonic light is changed. I mean, we all know that the light from the sun is very different visibly as well as energetically than it was when we were children. We're having to cipher, having to decipher, we're having to discern. It's what's called positive Saturn. As we pull back into authority, self-sovereignty, that's what the North Node in Aries for the last 18 months has behooved us to do, is to assert for the first time kind of in collective memory, is some form of self-sovereignty. And I do look at the last 4 years in some ways with great gratitude, even though it's been deeply painful. We all know of relationships, some very personal, and on my personal level, which I'm not going to get into, I've temporarily lost some very important relationships in my life because of differences of opinions to do with sovereignty, to do with, all what's gone on in the last 4 years. The North Node in Aries, and it's just at the 0 point now, which is the world axis, has really made us assert our boundaries. Who are we? And when we are able to be authentic, when we're able to be truthful to ourselves, then we're able to vibrate at the frequency that the new earth is asking us to do. And that will mean sifting through relationships, saying goodbye to some, even if it's painful, and embracing new ones. I mean, my closest friends in the last 4 years are totally some of the closest people in my life are people literally I've only met in the last 4 years. I mean, it is breathtakingly fascinating, and it's also very difficult to adjust to it because there's part of me, that Piscean part, which is romantic, somewhat nostalgic, still can't quite get over the fact that I have lost so many friends and family to my belief systems. But that's happening for all of us, and the ones who are on the journey to awaken, to be open to the new, to be the puer eternus, the eternal child, to step into it with courage. Mars ruling Aries is courage. And we are all, because the North Node is affecting us all, wherever our natal North Node is, we have to lean into that sense of to be courageous. Because when we can do that, even if it's painful, people see us for who we truly are. And then we can actually maximize our soul contract. We can actually achieve what we're here to do rather than appeasing other people and doing it to please people.
Mm. So many important points there. And again, as you say, you yourself have lost temporarily. I like the way you said that, because I like to think that some of the friendships that have gone by the wayside in my world will maybe come back around at some point. They'll look a bit different. And also, some of my closest people are also people I've met in the last 6, 7 years. Which is incredible because I've had friends from childhood, still do, but it's so interesting. And like you say, it's very much something about sovereignty of self. So we've grown up in systems and belief systems that largely weren't ours. They were our parents and teachers and guardians and maybe religions and this kind of thing. And we got to a point where energetically we were forced with, let's say 2020, we were forced into a shutdown and a reconfiguration. And there are so many people that say the people they were locked down with, they became the closest to, and the complete opposite. But there had to have been a shift in people emotionally. The structures, the systems that we innately, inherently, internally grew up with, of course they collapsed. Of course they were pushed. Of course they are no more. So we may have had blinkers on and been blind to certain things, and the lockdown certainly forced us to open our eyes and also decide that, wow, that imprisonment that happened to us, we will never tolerate that again, despite what is still physically happening, right? What are your thoughts on that?
No, 100%. I mean, the collective amnesia up until the beginning of the pandemic was so intense that there was no collective memory of freedom. And so we've had to sort of this is going through, a burning portal in a way. It's almost alchemical in the sense of we have to go through this suffering, this torment, this pain in order for us to ascend. And this, whether people look at it through the lens of the biblical story or a galactic perspective, it is the soul and the flesh coming together in some better alignment. You know, the study of the soul is called psychology, and yet in modern language and global civilization, it's not the study of the soul. The soul doesn't exist in material philosophy. It's been basically the study of the mind, and that's where we've gone wrong. So
Mm.
this whole North Node in Aries has been really about the assertion of our sovereignty. And yes, there has been tragedy on the way. There was always going to be on this planet of ours, this precious Gaia Terra planet of ours, in order for us to ascend, we have to go through elements of suffering. It's just the way it works, the way natural law works at the current timeline. But I think we are pushing through it, and we are going to be so much better for it because eventually, when the dust settles, we will never have a system that is so enslaving to us again in the future because we will have learnt and we will tell the story like Alex Collier talks about the law of consistency. We will teach our young and our civilization how to be and tell them everything. Obviously, we have to do it with relevance and authenticity, but also with respect to a child can't know too much straight away about it, but we have to share the truth of all the darkness in the right context rather, in order for it to be transpired into a new earth. And I think everything is coming out now. The light is being shone on the darkness. It's very emotional. It's very intense, but it has to happen. It's part of this cathartic experience as we enter the age of Aquarius. And so one thing I'd like to share also is with this North Node, for example, it's very interesting. Where were you all 18, 19 years ago? Because because the nodes move backwards, as the North Node is now 0, 1 degrees of Aries, it will move back into Pisces literally next week. What happened 18, 19 years ago? It's interesting that because Aries is primal cardinal fire, there were thousands of wildfires on the west coast of the United States in 2006. And then straight after that, there were floods. And here we are now with the Palisades and Hollywood. This fire energy is engulfing that part. Now, I have a slightly different perspective. Yes, these nodes tell us that it's happening elementally, but they're powers behind, they're principalities behind the throne that use these forces in order to achieve it because they know, you see, astrology is just a language. They're potent energies, they're archetypes, to quote Carl Jung. They get used and harnessed. So we are experiencing the fire, the cardinal fire right now. But in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we'll start to feel and experience the water. We've been told to watch the water. Very interesting. What does that mean? It could be many things. North Carolina 3 months ago, whatever. But here we are now. We're watching the water. And so we begin to wake up to the fact that astrology shows us the potent energy coming in. And then we start to see, okay, there's a manipulation happening behind it. And that's part of our great awakening, to see the system in play, to see the clockwork that it is. Think Hunger Games, to watch the clockwork and to say, we are being manipulated with it. We bring the power back. We become sovereign Aries. And so the matrix collapses because we actually witness it. And by witnessing it, it can't have hold over us. And that's the power of the alchemy. That's the power of spirit. That's the power of healing and consciousness.
Mm. You use the word alchemy, the power of alchemy. To me, each individual is here at this point right now to literally alchemize their own feelings, their trauma, their upset, their hatred, their rage, their judgment that we all have. Everyone has it on some level. And the alchemy within is what's going to take us to that higher, beautiful, lighter. I think the word enlightened has been very much kidnapped, and like the spiritual new age. Apparently, spirituality is a new age philosophy, which is bollocks, as you know. So words are kidnapped and moved away. That was part of the system that's collapsing. But I think one of the most important things, hands down, bar none, bar no one, bar no thing, is that as we're creating the new world, our world, not a new world order, that's failed, obviously, although we're still seeing smatterings of the idiots trying. But when we're looking at anyone moving forward in any position of power, humanity is going to demand that they remember their duty of care, that they are in service to us, to humanity, and we decide how the systems will be going forward. And I really want people to know this is what your world is becoming. This is what will be. You won't have Gavin Newsom, whatever the demonic bloke in California, stopping money going into the fire brigade or the reservoirs. So 10 years down the road, there's no water to put out the fires in Los Angeles right now. You know, they are showing us the ludicrous incompetence and terrible, absolutely terrible. We can go more into this if you want, but I just want to make the point that you raised that we will be seeing, and we, the people, decide globally now. We no longer tolerate what has been. It is gone. And we decided, and things had to, we, the good people, we never would have chosen so much suffering. It's still not okay. A lot of the suffering is created by let's say, the darker demonic side. I truly believe that. I truly know that. I live by that. I see that. But really knowing that people have so much hope and more voice now going forward. And yeah, so that's a point I really wanted to make.
No, it's a really important point, and I think to build on that point, a lot of people they're sort of unconscious. They're aware the stuff's going on, Lahaina and the Western, Hollywood, but they don't understand it's very deliberately orchestrated through direct energy weapons, through special types of energy frequency. These technologies have existed for decades, and we have to go back to a little bit of a history lesson. And I think part of the age of Aquarius in the next generation or two is going to be a relearning of our true history and our true ontology, which is our belief systems. And with Pluto moving through Aquarius, I've said this to your listeners before, but it's so important, is it's going to be a total revision and a re-understanding of our belief, our his story, history, and understanding that really we have been told a total distortion and an inversion of truth. And of course, we can go back to the foundation of the corporation of 1871 after the Civil War. We can go back to the Federal Reserve Mark III after the sinking of the Titanic. We've discussed this before, and so on and so forth. And so when we look at, the Hollywood Hills, it's just interesting just to be witness, but to realize that all those fires created, where trees are standing tall and fine, and then everything else is burnt to a crisp and melted. We are dealing with energy frequency weapons. And the more we can understand that and say, okay, that's the way it is. Yes, it's traumatic, but then we can alchemize it. And once the population basically understands that, Houston, we have liftoff, because then the administration coming in, which will soon be in, will be able to actually act on behalf of the people to deal with the areas of your expertise, the galactic and disclosure, because they will be open and ready for that conversation, whether it's the ant people we were discussing off air, different civilizations, subterranean, superterranean, extraterrestrial, beyond our lands, whatever that means. I'm incorporating flat earth theorists to circular people and everything in between. And for me, I don't really take a side in that because I'm the child, and I like to be the child because my consciousness is expanding. I'm learning every day, every month. I'm a new me. I'm shedding my skin, literally a new skin. I think, what is it? It's 7 skins shed on our body each month. I'm constantly shedding, hopefully not in the reptilian sense, but we're evolving. And the whole point is, we're moving towards the light. We're moving towards higher forms of consciousness. So when my frequency upgrades, and from time to time it does that when I have those non-terrestrial experiences. I've only had 2 or 3 of them in my life because my frequency at that specific time was high enough for them to come down enough for me to have some form of chinwag. And the more that happens, the more we're able to then ascend, and then we become this galactic part of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, where we might be able to jump onto 0 point energy and time travel in this bodysuit. How exciting is that?
No, it's incredible that there is so much good stuff happening. I mean, as an empath, like most people watching this are also empathic. I just find this, like the last couple of days, just this overwhelming, you know, grief, this terrible grief. And I've, like many people have cried so much for these people, these animals. Oh my God, the animals and the trapped farm animals. And, I think about, because in LA, it's such a terrible place for human trafficking, which has been proven over and over and over again. And there's so many places, tunnels, holding facilities of all these people that they'll never make it above ground again. There's so many more horror stories that won't come to the surface, but some of us that work in these environments and connected to people that work in these, we know there will be stories that never come to light, and so there's a terrible grieving, in that for everybody. People that had to leave their animals behind, and it's just shocking. On the other side, you could say, well, Hollywood represents Babylon. We're seeing the fall of Babylon. This has been predicted, and we can use all those lovely mythological expressions, but at the end of the day, people are homeless. They've lost everything, and to them, it's the apocalypse. It's the zombie, apocalypse. It's just the worst imaginable everything that ever happened for them. How can we relate that trauma that's rippling across the world to everybody who supports and who loves humanity and has empathy? How can we balance that against the astrological frequencies that you are so trained in?
I mean, I think it's interesting as I sit in front of you today in North Carolina in Cherokee Mountains, where, of course, only 3, 4 months ago was that heinous disaster catastrophe. I'm very close to the village of Marshall, which was totally swept down the river and totally obliterated. And here we are now talking about Hollywood. Now, there's a little difference, even though there are lots of similarities. What is the good news is we're going to be forced into radical localization. What does that mean? It means local people stepping up to the fore again, not relying on the federal government, realizing the corruption of FEMA, whatever it is, these agencies which don't have the local people in best priority, and local people in Hollywood or hopefully in California anyway will step up, bring people in into the bosom, nurture, like the woman I'm staying with here. She did exactly that for 2 months solidly with local people, and I know many people like that here. Now, the difference is we're dealing also in Hollywood with that very dark entity as well. And this is where I'm going to approach it at a higher level now and say the spotlight's been shone on this. We did it with P. Diddy 2, 3 months ago with all that stuff, and it's, where different lists coming out with islands and stuff like that. There is this great awakening as to the corruption, and someone like myself who studies frequency, works with sound, music is frequency, music is healing, and music has been grossly manipulated since the Second World War and before, especially with the shift, as we all know, from 432 to 440, and all that entails. And I could, go into the manipulation of the Beatles and Rolling Stones and the whole 9 yards. We all know that now. We didn't know it before. Well, some of us did, but not the population. Tom, Dick, and Harry kind of know it now. They may not be ready to totally admit it or to discuss it in public because they've got to process their own situation with their relationships, their family, their dynamics. We honor that. And this is where we have compassion. But Hollywood has been very dark for a long time. I mean, The Wizard of Oz was a documentary, about the greenback and understanding the economic satanic magic behind money and finance. This is just truth to power. And so there are going to be casualties. We're in a war. It's not a kinetic war like where we witnessed World War I and II. But this is from the big perspective. So on a local perspective, local people have got to step up to the key and go in there, bring people into their homes outside the area and support, like I've witnessed here in North Carolina. That will hopefully happen, and we pray for that. And what does that do? It reactivates the republic. And by human beings doing that, it actually helps the administration for we, the people, with a vast mandate to actually have this bidirectionality of healthy politics in the new republic. Because suddenly the local people are in charge. The local people are never giving up authority. Back to the North Node and Aries. They're never giving up their sovereignty. They are, we the people, this republic, this constitution represents us. And we put those people in there. We create a 2-term limit, as already has been discussed. Isn't it interesting that Doge, D-O-G-E, I find it very fascinating. The Department of Governmental Efficiency is named after the great leaders, the grey popes of Venice, the maritime law. I find that very fascinating. I'll leave it at there today, but I think it's curious that symbolism will be their downfall. This is happening in real time, and it's very painful for all of us when we see people in tragedy, we see animals being eviscerated. It's dreadful. and we pray for their souls, but we pray for the ability for humanity, when we come through the smoke, when we come through the toxic fog, to actually create an earth of 1,000 years, actually be many more, a proper age of peace, which we do not understand because the Babylonian system has been so in control for so long.
hmm Well, when you've got these, legions of dark souls who've eradicated the true history of our Earth, who right now, even in Göbekli Tepe, are cementing over artifacts, are growing olive trees over acres and acres of land, suggesting that this is for future generations to uncover. They have zero right. They have no right. And again, this is where we, the people, have allowed power to the numbnuts, the 1% that have been running our planet, my planet, your planet, our planet. And this has been a horrible way for humanity to recognize, hang on, if I do nothing, this will be the rest of my life. My town could be incinerated. And again, when we're looking at physical signatures of an event, like a fire, there are physical signatures. These aren't just wild conspiracy theories. We had the Paradise, we had Lahaina, and now we have LA, Palisades, parts of LA. I just tried to share a video, I couldn't get it. Of a neighborhood in LA, there's not a single fire around, there's no ash in the sky, yet a man in his front garden is hosing the palm tree in his garden that is on fire. And there is a helicopter in the distance. Now, people haven't caught on that drones can be operated with lasers. They can cause fires. They can do anything. They can poison you. They can do anything. They can deliver you a burger and a drink too. Come on, we know this is true. So we got to be using and expanding more, because I think one of our biggest wake up calls was 9/11, September 11th, 2001, where the Twin Towers were taken down by physical demolition. And because the insiders, the CIA, the people that mean harm to humanity, because they got away with it, all these years, people haven't had the courage to put it back on the table, to force it on the table, for it to be a global conversation. They just want to brush it away like it happened in 2001. Yeah, now look where we are. Because we didn't take care of business in 2001, now we're paying for it. We, humanity, we're paying for it. These are my opinions. These are my thoughts, you know? And they consider themselves still elite. They can do what they want, wipe us out. They're still going for their agenda. We have astrology, astronomy, numerology, history. We have all these things. At the end of the day, we're in the present moment. As a humanity, what are we going to do with this moment? What is each individual person going to say, to speak, to feel, to put out, to emit, to think? The power we have is just beyond explanation, isn't it, George?
Yeah, it is. And part of it is also understanding our relationship with death. And death is an illusion, but you see, in our current civilization, let's just keep it to the basic 20th century until now, goes back a bit further, is a total push towards materialism and sort of focus deliberately on the lower three chakras and a blocking of the higher chakras. Okay, we all know that. And most importantly, it's about an integration of the chakras. I don't personally think the chakras work independently. I think I'm very Chinese in this sense. I'm talking ancient Chinese of the waters of the body represent the microcosm of the macrocosm, as above, so below. The axiom of Hermes Trismegistus, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. And I think the thing is, once we understand the whole context of us souls having a bodily human experience, and we do the spiritual journey work, we begin to see death not as death. We begin to see it as a transition from one state to the other. And once human beings can reconnect with that truth, which the ancients knew, the old Saturnian matrix cannot have the control over us through loosh or otherwise in the way that they have. And I think that's going to be part of the journey work of the new academies coming in to teach. And, people like Jordan Peterson already are teaching very interesting new stuff on their academies. And, I'm trying to share in a very, minor way with my academy, bringing out the sense of self-sovereignty through alchemy, understanding the real tenets of what it is to be human, not the distorted, inverted ideas, just learning facts and figures, which is basically distraction from really the soul's purpose through the physicality, is to explore all these delights in order to reconnect with the divine. I mean, that's why we have the primal schism. We come out of unity consciousness. It's why the child comes in so often before the vaccines, whatever, comes in with this inner knowledge, and then, of course, forgets it because society doesn't allow it deliberately to be shared and supported. They come in with past life knowledge often. We have to reconnect to our soul contract, and that's part of the journey life. And the more we can do that, the more we can upgrade our frequency, and we'll live much longer. And once the water make the world healthy again, how could anyone disagree with that? To make America, make the world healthy again. This is part of our natural inheritance. And, water is such a big part of it, because when we can cleanse the water, our frequency is just going to activate. Our pineal gland will be decalcified and everything else. And that's what we're going to be going into as we, journey into the age of Aquarius, which is really what we're doing. And this new administration gives us the opportunity. It has to prove itself, of course. It has to get on and deliver. And the public will be very quick to see this time round, because there is an expectation that this time is different. I believe it is very different. All the other stuff was window dressing before, with the fake left and right. Doesn't matter whether it's Labour, Conservative, Republican, Democrat. That's the unity party inversion, and pretending that they're giving us a choice when we all know that it wasn't. This is different. This is a choice this time. This is where I have something which is very different from my European and British compatriots. I'm sorry to say, I have this American thing. It's called faith. Yeah, I do have this element of faith, and I'm proud of it. And I know I don't sound like an American. I never will, because I grew up in England and I'm a dual citizen and I love both countries. But I'm also fully aware of what America has to offer and its place in the world historically. And again, now as we birth the Second Republic, I think I said in 2016, 2017, over the next 10 years, we will be birthing the Second Republic. We will be reactivating the primary republic, which got distorted through all the different reasons and lessons, which we can go over another time. So I'm very optimistic about it. At the same time, there's a lot of sadness, compassion, grief, of course, because there's a lot of destruction and mayhem in the process. But if you look at alchemy, even in the chemistry laboratory, that is kind of the law of polarity on our planet, that we have to go through the fire, the dross, the burning off, in order to alchemize the new.
Mhm. There's so many things that you raised there. You mentioned the water. There's absolutely no reason why there couldn't have been enough water from the ocean. I read someone saying, yeah, but if they use salt water in the hoses, they corrode. Oh my goodness, listen to yourselves. We already know how to desalinate the water in the ocean. That technology's been here for tons and tons of years.
Absolutely.
Remember those hoovers? There's a tube you can plug in your house along, and you can hoover vacuum the whole house. We could easily set up hoses in certain areas in every single city that have access to the water, and we could spray. There's absolutely, oh, let's blame the wind. Go on, go ahead.
No, no, it's because it's so important to get this ball over the net to the listeners who still don't understand at 30,000 feet. If those people are still saying, well, they could have put the pumps on the water, that's been deliberately done. The mayor of Los Angeles was in Africa at the time, sent away. This is 2030 program. This is the depopulation program. Canada was all, I'm so sorry. California was always going to be the trial place of the 15-minute city. Germany was going to be the European one, certain places in Britain, as the trial experimentation. This is being revealed. None of this is accident. It's pure on plan from a darker agenda. And the great news is it's being revealed. More of us are seeing it. So all I implore more people to realize that this is predictive. This is what the Hollywood movies were trying to get us to do. This is how they get us to to actually accept it by telling us subliminally what they're going to do ahead of time. And the more we realize that, we alchemize it, and it doesn't actually end up happening because we change the timeline, which has already happened in my mind. The timeline has merged, and it's not going to happen, but it's a question of we're playing catch up now to realize that this has been their agenda from day one. The fires, even the ones of 5, 6 years ago, I'm bad on exact dates, but it was to do with the electrical company. They were clearing the forest to put in their train, and they wanted their high-speed train, but they never got it. They embezzled the money. That's what they do with California, the fires. There's so many different agendas. One can argue Hollywood being taken down on the dark side, they want to cover up all the tunnels and all the nonsense and the darkness. On the light side, it's the revelation. It's trying to expose, shine light on the darkness. This is the Plutonic moment. This is Pluto. This is the end of the deception, which is the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces was not able to be lived at a high level of consciousness. The high level of consciousness for Pisces is Christ consciousness, is mystical union with the divine. We couldn't do that. Maybe there were snippets of it in the Dark Ages. Maybe there was in Tartaria, whenever those dates were. But at the end of the day, it was deception and psychological manipulation. That's being revealed as we step into the age of Aquarius now. It's about asserting our self-sovereignty, saying no to technocracy, no to homoborg genetic culture, and saying yes to our biological inheritance.
Yeah, with that level of arrogance, where there's been people that made decisions for our lives for decades, and people again have to be reminded that it's multi-generational. It's great grandparents, great grandparents, grandparents, parents, children, their children, grandchildren. It's like at least 7 different decades, 7 different generations of people that have gone through the same programming over and over and over, the roboticizing of this is how things are done. We pay tax, we work 9 to 5, we do this, we do that. And it was all a nonsense. That's not what we all came here for. So again, so many ways to go. But you mentioned water and how important water is moving forward. And I look forward now to women birthing their babies in different ways. And when they birth their babies, that the umbilical cord is left attached. And the mother and the child have that moment where the blood and the stem cells are merging. This is how it was meant to be. This is how it will be. And from the days of women lying on their backs, some say it was from the time of Louis the 13th, 14th, whatever. It doesn't really matter. One story I heard was Queen Victoria was visiting a hospital. They thought it indecent for ladies to be laying down unless they were laying down and not showing their parts, which is crazy. And of course, we know that the best way to birth a child, thanks to our beautiful African brothers and sisters, that it is gravity, you squat. And this is again something that's been removed, and that we are all making a stand and putting naturalness back into our everyday living. And this will be, make no mistake, on every level, this will be the way we, the people, we loving humanity, we bring it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got goosebumps. Look, the dignity of womanhood, the dignity and the sanctity of the woman bringing the next generation in on this holy planet of ours was really inverted. And this is where I'm very critical of what we call the patriarchy. I don't tend to go down that route because I'm a great believer in masculine and feminine archetypes coming together in polarity consciousness, but the desecration of the feminine. And it's one of the reasons why I find someone like Dr. Christiane Northrup so inspirational, because of, it's the reimagining of the biological. And this is, for me, as a spiritual person, is saying no to the technocracy, which was the failed aspect of the Atlantean civilization. We won't get into that now, where now it's like we're going to return to the biological divine. It's almost more Lemuria. Now, water is an interesting part because obviously on a physical level, they say it's 70%, but on a molecular level, they say it's 95+%. And of course, we're very familiar with Dr. Emoto's work and recently more Austin's work on the memory of water. Water carries memory, but that's also based on like Victor Schoberger's water, the water vortex, the treatment revolution, and then other great people who were sort of sidelined in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And I think this is part of our great awakening is understanding water, maybe even in space. It's more watery than we think. And I don't know. I'm very open to that. Some people are beginning to bring in more information to say that maybe space actually has a lot more water in it than we've been told. And then obviously some
Up there.
people are talking about.
And oceans and oceans. You know, it's
Right.
insane in space. We're not, again, this is a thing that people need to understand. If you're still looking at your tellies, your televisions for information, if you're still looking at the leaders and the authorities and the NASA's and the this and the that, oh my God, you're stuck in 1960. Come on, guys, it's 2024. There are
And,
oceans. There are landscapes. There are ships that are 800 miles wide and 900 miles long. Come
and
on,
that's
guys.
and that's probably a small ship.
Yeah, and we know that from our friend Alex Collier. We will
Yeah.
keep on sharing the truth. And those that are just hearing little bits, if your mind can't accept it, it's okay. We move on regardless. At some point, my love, you will catch up because you will have no choice. It's not about waiting for Jesus to come back on the good ship Jerusalem and all these fake people that have these agendas. This is about all of us, all of us. And it's so hard for some people to hear the things that you and I are sharing and marry them with the internal dialogue they've been having their whole lives. And that's okay. It's too late to go back to what was.
I
Now
mean,
we move forward.
yeah, I mean, my response to that would be now, let's all take a deep breath in through the nose, breathe in that potential for magic, which is science undiscovered or science rediscovered, and to step into the archetype of the puer aeternus, which is the Latin for the eternal child. In some ways, it's the sun card in the tarot, and it's all of us wherever our sun is. And with the North Node in Aries, it's the child because it's the baby of the zodiac. And once we're able to step into that archetype, we're very free. And in that sense, I think I'm a bit of an exemplar of that because my body tells me the fact that I sit here with you and your wonderful enlightened listeners, who many of them know so much more about this than me, it's like how exciting it is because I'm discovering it in real time. Isn't that quite a fun experience in life? As opposed to I sit here and I know this or that. I find that would be, I wouldn't be able to do that because I'd feel so stressed of not having enough information. Where for me, every time I come on your channel, I'm coming with a little bit of new information. We're building. We're master builders here because we're in our creative magic. I think if we can lean into that, we have a great chance of fun, joy, harmony, peace, authenticity.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the things that you do in the world. You are a master painter. Your paintings look like photographs. You have an ability to bring something to canvas, the likes of which I have rarely seen. And people that see your work say the same thing. You are a poly, oh my God, not a polyamorist. Oh my goodness.
Polymath, I think I'd say
A
polymath, a
polymath.
polymath.
Polymath,
Mm.
yes, give me. I'm polygamist. I've been watching stuff on Mormons today that was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Polygamy is everywhere there. Yeah,
Well,
there's
I mean, one can, I mean, energetically, I mean, that's very Aquarian. My Venus is an Aquarius. I can love many people in different ways, but when it comes to affairs of the heart, I'm definitely a one person at a time person. I'm a bit old fashioned like that. I just believe in the sanctity of union between two people. I think that's rather beautiful, but that's just me. No, painting wise, it's interesting. Um, I it's an alchemical thing. I have many different processes. I've used the camera obscura, which can often explain why some of my stuff can be quite photographic. I think I fuse what I call the Saturnian language of exactitude, of the detail, with the Neptunian of mysticism, and that's really the alchemist, I think, in me, and that's why I've always been very influenced by the great Renaissance painters because I want to tell a story of high epic proportions in my own humble way. I'm really interested in cosmos and psyche. I'm really interested in the agony and the ecstasy. I'm interested in exploring the polarity that is our unique planet, planet Earth. And again, back to your area of expertise, why so many non-terrestrials are so fascinated and also so involved and so keen to see our ascension because this planet is unique. And I think art, again, without going into it, has been desecrated in the 20th century. I mean, it's interesting for me. I've never shared this in public before, but many people have told me for well over a decade that I'm such a great painter, but no gallery in London or New York has wanted ever to take me on. And I know exactly why, because I'm unabashed about it. I'm genuinely interested in our connection to spirit, to higher source, to consciousness. And by definition, the galleries of London and New York do not want that. They want to desecrate that. Up until this point, we're going through a shift now. The galleries of the future, the galleries of if they're going to be galleries, the artists, the interest is going to be multiple ways to explore the human, the flesh within the sacred. And obviously there's many ways to do that. I'm not suggesting ever to put a boundary on how we do that. Every individual will do it him or her in their unique way. But ultimately, art is an expression of the divine, and of the pain and the suffering within the divine. It mustn't be a desecration of the divine. Art in the last 150 years, certainly since the First World War and maybe a bit before, has been about nihilism, the destruction, the fact that the soul is absurd, humanity is absurd, it's limited. It's, to quote Cosmos and Psyche and Richard Tarnas, we're separate from source, and we're nothing. And that's been a very clever way for the Saturnian system to keep us enslaved in a limited perception of reality. Let that no more. And art is a way for us to soar. So I love the fact that we're all artists, and even though I'm a visual artist, music is my greatest, because music is the universal code. Music is the universal language. Was it Goethe who says architecture is frozen music, and music is liquid architecture? At the end of the day, when we're able to create, we're able to be ourselves, we're able to be authentic, we're able to be free. And that's when we can begin to love. We can't possibly love without being authentic, without creating.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, it's just so true. So many things again there that you say that just open up doors, for so many different areas of discussion. And there's no kind of clear route through to say that even though the great galleries in New York and London have ignored you, their loss, like seriously, their loss, the list on your website of people that you've painted for, presidents, kings, queens, literally everybody, listen to this. Here, listen to me now. This man, his grace, his energy, his ability, his artistic, everything about him is so loved. He is a unique individual. He is a unique frequency. I'm giving you a
It,
compliment. Stop interrupting.
I,
I'm not going to keep going. I'm going to put you on mute. You are going to take a compliment. The list on his website is absolutely astonishing. So I invite you to go ahead, georgehlewis.com.
but thank you. And I'm very grateful. I'm getting better at accepting that. But I will say, although that list is pretty much exclusive up until the timeline change of 2016, 2017, which I think is quite interesting to observe.
Interesting. And
Once
it's
2016,
relevant. It's irrelevant to my compliment.
exactly. And in a way, it's also relevant to my journey because I'm a very different soul incarnate 10 years later. And we haven't got time or the capacity to go into my engagements with the United Nations, with different organizations in 2014, 2015 on this conversation today. But I'm a very changed man, and the art, in a way, yes, I got some great patrons back then, but all those are pre the timeline change, which is for me connected to. Oh, so there go the lovely dogs. These gorgeous Rhodesian Ridgebacks are
Oh, I
obviously
love the
agreeing with me.
Rhodesian Ridgeback.
They're gorgeous. Can you see? He's lovely. He's
Yeah.
called Duke. He's a
Yeah.
gorgeous one. He's got a lovely personality,
Ah.
and he was just obviously agreeing with me on that. Um, but but anyway, art. Here's the thing, this is the takeaway for all of us: is we're all artists at the end of the day. We're all artists. Um, we're
Ah,
all artists.
beautiful.
And the point is, in the new Earth, everyone's got to learn to express that codex, which is part of their divine inheritance. And in the new Earth, we're not going to celebrate artists in the way that they did in the past with these ghastly Damien Hirst nonsense crap. We're going to return in a way to innocence and the sacredness. Maybe we'll end up creating art co-creationally where we don't have to put our big name all over it, because ultimately it's in reverence to the divine, in reverence to source creator, in reverence to something bigger than ourselves. I think that's the age of Aquarius when it's operating at a high frequency.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any more of people sticking a banana to a wall and calling that art when it's just obviously taking the mick out of the whole world and seeing how much more humanity is going to use academic snobbery to allow them to be infected with that academic snobbery to say that is beautiful when it's obviously rubbish. We're going to be a lot more honest and not allow these things to come in. I don't believe that we're going to see any more men on screen putting a milk substance through their nipples forcefully into the mouth of a newborn baby, and that sickness, I don't believe we're going to be forced to see that, and that will come to a natural, helpful mental support for people
Conclusion.
like that simply have to accept if you are a man, you don't have breasts, that means you don't have milk ducts. Like I don't have a penis. I have to be okay with that. These are things that will become more conversational, where we won't hide from them, worrying that someone's going to judge us. I don't mind who judges me. I'm going to tell the truth. On that same note, you mentioned the United Nations. So, what's been happening because of the programming and the social engineering? You said United Nations, there'll be some people who don't have their own thoughts and don't realize that. It's not always our fault. And they'll go, "Oh my God, I'm not watching any more of this." And they'll switch off because you mentioned the United Nations and they don't want to
Well,
hear the
it,
foundation of what which the United Nations was built on. People have to look
yeah.
into that. Same as the WEF, the WHO, the CDC, all of these authoritative bodies, they all need to go into the trash. They're based on trash and they've hurt everybody. They've hurt us all. And it's all right to have these conversations. Go ahead, because I'm going to bring up Trump and Putin next.
No, because, I love this. But you see, I had a reading with a client this morning before this conversation of ours. And this lady, very nice lady, but she had sort of banned me 2 years ago, or blocked me, or just unfollowed me, whatever you want to describe it, because of some of the stuff I was sharing. And then she reapproached me last week for a reading. It's beautiful. And I think in some ways, this is the great awakening when some of us are been peeling the artichoke a little longer than others. And obviously not as long as the Colliers and Ikes of this world, even if we don't necessarily always agree with everything everyone says.
Yeah.
It's like a sense of, it's a sense of, um, uh, it's wonderful to see people do wake up. So there's someone who may listen to that about the UN, and I didn't really say very much. That's okay. They turn it off, but they'll probably find their way back to you when they're ready. And this is when we're authentic. That's okay. It's beautiful. And I think there's less power in the polarity as we step more into this new earth. You do you, I do me. And of course, as long as we're not doing the tawdry nonsense of the dark Saturnian side, then really it's really okay. There's much more freedom going to be coming out in the new earth, and we just have a choice. You see, freedom to choose how we're going to express our creativity as sovereign, empathic, consciously filled beings, you see. And in that sense, I'm innately positive, and that's back to my faith ingredient, which I long for my British and European compatriots to lean into a little bit more.
But then again, are European and British, because obviously some people think that European is the same as Britain. It's not, and Britain is England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. Some education needed there. But I think more of that will come too because we've all been so dumbed down. But I'm living in England right now. I cannot believe the violent hatred, and it's violent hatred to Putin, to Trump. because of all the programming and the things that people have been told. When we're told over and 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 over again, we start to believe the things because we don't have any proof. We're not in their bedrooms, in their offices, and on their phones with them. And on Christmas Day, I did a couple of broadcasts on my therapy side. I'm always trying to do a little therapy here and there for free for people. So I bought these really fantastic glasses. They're Christmas trees. They're hilarious. And I said to people, look, Christmas Day, someone brings up Trump and Putin. If it gets a bit sticky around the table, put them on. Well, I took my own advice because I said I couldn't wait for Trump to get his ass in office and on day one put steps in to stop the Ukrainian war. Now, of course, I mean, of course, it's not going to happen in 1 second. Of course, there's so many things around it, but that's what I want to see happen. I want to believe everything that the man says he's going to do. He's not God, he's not Jesus, he's not a savior. He's a bloke in a job who's got the guts to do it with the support of the good military and governments around the world, because there are some really bad people out there. So we bring it up at the table and someone say, so Putin's got part of Ukraine and those people are locked down and they have to stand. I'm like, listen, I don't know enough. And then I thought, no, and I just put my glasses on. I just sat there in my stupid glasses. I said, I don't have the education you do right now. And so the person, female, she laughed and she just kind of backed down. I said, I'll go find out what you're telling me and then let's have a conversation. You know, I didn't have a point to defend. I know what I
Yeah.
feel with Trump and
Mm.
Putin in part, but like everybody watching this, none of us are their friend. None of this, I mean, it might maybe 1% of people watching, but most of us, we don't know. So let's have an open mind. Let's not be
Mm.
shut down. That's what I'm saying, George. It's important for people not to knee jerk because they've been told a little bit of a story.
So let's bring it to the health because this will help people. For us to be healthy, if we live in constant opposition, in constant fear, in separation, in also fixed belief systems, we do die younger and we also die unhappy and we die sick.
Mhm.
Very few people get to a ripe old age if they've really been super fixed in their belief systems. And I think that's quite a nice way in to those people who do want to have a happier, more fulfilling, flourishing life, is just to, that's where the spiritual side comes in, is, you know, we don't have to always agree with everyone, or we don't have to be angry if we disagree. I love the fact that people think differently. And I'll just give you another example on this. And I'm saying it a bit because I think it's important. I have such huge respect for David Icke, for example. I've learned from him for decades, especially in the last decade, because my awakening really has been kind of, if I'm going to label it, since the timeline change of 2016, a little bit earlier, but not much. He's been at it since 89. He's like a father of the movement. Alex Collier would be the same. Now, with Mr. Icke, I've had the pleasure of meeting him. He's an amazing man. I don't agree with him on the things like Trump because I feel this is different. This is exceptionalism. This is an awakening. I have something called faith, but it doesn't stop me admiring him taking so much knowledge and wisdom from his multiple books and lectures. That's how I find myself free rather than having to suddenly go into opposition because I have a different view currently on say even Musk, because I don't even believe it's the same Musk as the one before. I can't explain that back to my heart. I understand the technologies quite well. I understand the Musk's sophistications, 100 years of technology which we're behind on understanding. I understand clones, but it doesn't matter. The point is I have faith in what this administration is trying to do, and I will watch it like a hawk too, because it doesn't mean I've just giving my power away. Oh no. I mean, I'm growing my vegetables, I'm creating my own life, trying to show people how to do that by living that myself. The more we can do our truth, we can teach it. I mean, I teach what I most need to learn. And so the point is, I find so much freedom and pleasure in the fact that I can learn from people who are different from me. And as long as they're living their authentic truth, it's very inspiring. And I actually like being around people who do look at it differently because I will learn something different. Otherwise, I'm in an echo chamber.
Yeah, yeah. And again, there'll be people that watch you that hear what you say about Ike and they'll make a judgment on that based on something they may have heard or something they were told and on and on and on it goes. And we don't need to separate. We need to be able to handle like maturing adults in these vessels that we
Mm.
actually all don't know unless we absolutely know. And then if we know,
Yeah,
let's say
no,
a harmful person, let's say that, right? Let's just say that, he's got to the top of where he is because of certain things he did when he was younger. Maybe he's trying to get out of his system right now, whatever the case might be. We can make up any story, and people do, sadly, they do. And I don't know the man, so I can't comment. These are just, suppositions. But people have to be okay, or not, it's their choice. If they're not okay with taking a breath and listening and considering something different, you know, and especially when it comes to religion and all the
yeah,
opposing cults, religions, which is the same energy frequency. But my God, you say to a person, don't you realize how cultish, how gang-like that is? You're telling me if I don't give my heart to Jesus, I'm going to hell? But if I love
yeah.
Buddha, that's the devil. And you're going to walk away from me because I'm not going to give my heart to Jesus, for example. And they're so programmed and it's aggressive and it's brutal and it's violent, but they won't accept it. And again, these are
Well,
really important conversations to have openly
yeah,
and be okay with being wrong. Oh my God, I put my hand up, George, so many times. We're humans, we're learning, we're all learning. None of us have every single
100%.
answer, not even the Pope.
This is a learning, this is a school. Earth is a learning school in many regards. I mean, again, the Pluto and Aquarius journey, which is now until 2044, is really moving out of our fixed belief system. So whether one's the materialist, secular person living in New York or London on the one hand, or the fundamentalist Christian, Muslim, or Christian living in Tennessee, or the fundamentalist Christian living in Saudi, or the fundamentalist Jew living wherever, we are all going to be put through the ringer in terms of our ontology, our belief systems. And when we can understand that and sit with that in silence, in reverence of what's actually happening to us individually and collectively, it's very Aquarian what I'm describing, we are able to really journey through it and create something drastically more superior and better supportive of the biological human. But until we come out of that, until we stop defining ourselves through our belief systems, we're going to be in pain and suffering. So to me, it's quite clear. I mean, the journey's tricky, but I'm quite clear on where we're heading. We have to really observe ourselves and not define ourselves through our own belief system. And if we can start to do that, it's going to be so much more pleasurable.
You're so right. And also, you mentioned the Pope, and my question to the world watching, is he talking about the regular Pope, the white Pope, the grey Pope, or the black Pope? Which Pope? And then people go, oh my God, what do you mean? There are three popes. We only
Yes.
see one. We have to have the courage and the authority to be okay to question. We question everything. We question the ancient scriptures, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata. Whatever we want to do, we have the right to do because any God that smiteth thee down is a God that needs to kick up the arse and send out the room. Because if we are going to live a life of fear, of being slain or smiteth thee, smiteth you. Off you pop, you rude bugger. That's my answer to that. And I get to say what I like. I get to think what I like. And people that don't allow that thought, oh, pop it. Don't worry. At some point, you're going to see we're free. We came in free. We're going to live free. And all the systems that we're here to repress, we don't engage in them anymore. The chains are broken. It's all coming down, honey pie. It's all coming down. Now, before I tell a little bit about what I'm doing in the world with the galactic information, the drones, the UFOs, the cigar-shaped craft, I would like you please to tell us what courses are you doing? Where can we get you? What do you need us to know for the next couple of months until you and I reconvene on my lovely channel and have our next catch up? The floor is yours, George H. Lewis.
Well, I'm going to be on georgehlewis.academy.com, be sharing a new course which will be coming out probably in about a week's time. So I'll be sharing that within the next week, I hope, to do with sort of alchemy and preparing for the creativity of 2025, giving us some, I mean, astrology is a useful tool. It guides someone in order to play out their soul contract, to have that information, which, the power structure have always used astrology. They never stopped. And they very cleverly, the Vatican's always used it, the City of London, the lodges, everyone's always used it. Those people have always used it. And my job really is to allow the people, we the people, just to have access to it. And it's going to evolve. It's going to change. I mean, ultimately, we'll build to probably transmute it and go beyond it. But, astrology, this is what I like to teach, is kind of the Delphic oracle. It's to know thyself. And
Mm.
this is part of the Pluto and Aquarius conversation, is the more we know ourselves, our inner selves, our inner journey, the more we can express it better externally. And we're all trying to perfect that. And it's an ongoing, work in progress. So my GeorgeHLewisAcademy.com is going to be, focusing on some interesting courses coming up. So just people can check that periodically and see what's coming up. And then, of course, I've got my other website, GeorgeHLewis.com, which is my art and, private readings and stuff like that.
Beautiful. Now, are you still doing commissions? You can be commissioned to paint something beautiful.
Yes, I'm actually creating my own tarot deck at the moment. It's very interesting, I've loved tarot for a long, long time, and I've had some great mentors, and I've always worked with the Rider-Waite deck. And of course, tarot is so powerful because it's a visual image and it brings out the archetypes, and they're totally good correspondences with the astrology. They work very nicely together. And I'm creating my first tarot deck, and I'm doing it with a dear friend, a collaborator, and it's so nice to be collaborating with him, Brian D'Alessandro. And even though I'm painting it, we're feeding each other, and it's for me as an Aries, it's really nice to be collaborating so much with good people. And I think that's part of the new Earth is really leaning into co-creative projects together. It's very fulfilling.
It's so beautiful that you raised that point that, again, we're talking about being different to others, but not dropping them because they don't fit our belief system and we're going to push against it and decide they're suddenly a bad person. But I cannot stand the tarot, but that doesn't at all change my opinion of you because I know for a fact the tarot was originally created to tell stories of history for people because the people were dumbed down. They weren't allowed to learn to read or write. They had to sign their
Very
name
true.
tags. And so these things were brought to share story, oratory, audibly, and the great orators. And so I can look at that knowing I've done my research, I've read, I've studied, where do they come from? And I don't have an aversion to them. They're not evil unless used for evil purposes. You could have three apples that are not evil, but if you use them for evil, think Snow White, then they are for evil purposes. So, as humans, we have to be more sensible and decide what is going to piss us off, what we're going to choose to upset us, or be able to have, a conversation going forward. So, delighted for your lovely deck. I can't wait to share it here on my channel when they come out. I know they're going to be beautiful.
I've just painted the Fool card, and it's come out quite well. And I'm working on a few others, but it's really exciting.
That's so exciting. So exciting.
It's quite cosmic too. It's very, I mean, it's still based off the correspondence with the Rider-Waite, the classic deck, which came out of the Golden Dawn movement. But it's very different. It's quite cosmic, some of the way I'm painting it, because I need to evolve the archetypes. That's what we're doing. As we evolve into higher realms of consciousness, we're going to be pulling more galactic, cosmic languaging into the system. Because, the world's very different from 1880 or 1900 when Pamela painted her beautiful Rider-Waite deck.
Mhm.
Pamela Smith,
Yeah. Yeah. And again, to usurp the energy frequency of Crowley or Crowley, as some call
That's
that,
Crowley. Yeah.
evil
Yes,
bollockhead, who tried to
yes.
then demonize something beautiful. And again, the people that I say for 1,000 times in a row, fire your guides, and their ego won't let them. Oh, I couldn't possibly. My guide is Babaji. My guide is Hashem. My guide is Yogananda. They are so full of their ego and showing off and peacocking, they don't realize someone like that, dark, demonic Aleister Crowley, he had a grey looking being, he called it Lamb, that ran him. that he went to, you know. And so again, invitation, guys, the darkness, the lower density is here. We are raising up. We are raising up, you know, and we're becoming unbound and becoming freer.
I mean, it's interesting to witness because, of course, I have a Thoth deck. I've had it for years. I've never done a reading with it on purpose because I don't think I want to play with those energies. Now, when I look at the images and artists, I'm quite inspired. The energy for me when I look at the Thoth deck is it keeps me quite in the lower three chakras. It's quite sexualized. It's base, and so it's just very important just to observe that unattached. I'm going to be quite Aquarian in that sense to observe what does that do when we look at the Thoth deck. It's beautiful. It's erotic. It's powerful, but it's for me not the energies that I want to be working with because I love the sensual, the sexual, but it has to be united with spirit in
Yeah.
order for us to achieve the ascension that we're here to do.
So you're basically getting like one, two, three, you know, first, second, third chakra, lower, you know, dark. We need to raise up to connect spirit, mind, body, and soul, mind, body, and spirit.
Right. I mean, if I could just generalize, but also come in, hone in, I would say the Saturnian system, Saturn, Satan, whatever, has deliberately tried to keep us in the lower three chakras. I mean,
Mhm.
that's been the whole, we all know that. And it's been a blocking of the pineal, the pituitary, blocking of the crown, through many different reasons. And whether it's the water, the foods, the air, I mean, the whole 9 yards. And so, whether we're doing tarot, astrology, whatever modality we're seeking to use, we want to have a modality that is certainly intentionally trying to unite 7+, and I mean plus plus, chakras in order for us to do the journey work. So, in that sense, I'm quite clear on that. And I like that because it's quite a nice ambition to have because it keeps me clean, it keeps me creative, and it keeps me collaborative.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, George H. Lewis, thank you so much, my darling love. It's always such a joy to have you here on my channel, and we'll be back with you in next 8 weeks, I would say.
Thank you, Danny. It's always a pleasure. It really is. Much love.
Much love, much love. And to you lovely people out there, guess what? Listen to this quick reminder. On the 27th of September 2024, a huge fleet of identified spacecraft flew over a little hotel, two little towers in a no-fly zone and no drone fly zone over my conference. I, Dani Henderson, created the most amazing disclosure vehicle. It's called Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection. It has become the most beautiful, amazing disclosure conference on our planet. So Elena Danan, my best friend in the world, called in these craft. They were planned. It was a planned event. We weren't sitting outside waiting, hoping, calling them in. We planned that bugger, and it happened along with a TR-3B military, proving that the Earth military, the good military, because there's a bad one too, working with the good galactics, because there were and are negative ones that are no longer in our solar system. Since that time, you may have noticed hundreds and hundreds of drones and craft and cigar-shaped cigars, craft coming out. It happened after my event, Gsic, and I'm gonna brag about it. I'm gonna make the point that that happened, and the military have observed that. It's not about me, of course it isn't. I'm just I set the stage. Elena Danan brought the fleet. The military, Earth military. It's so beautiful. Two women kicking ass and saying to you, humanity, come and join us, come and be part of what is happening. Either enjoy it here on my channel, Dani Henderson, or come to a conference. We got the next one in England, May 10th and 11th, and we are bringing the Space Fleet again. This time, JP, our Army Insider, is going to be there bringing the craft in over Eastbourne Beach. We've got like 7 general admission tickets left and about, I think, I don't know, 50 gold tickets left. That's it. I cannot believe how quickly we've almost sold out. So please jump on, get your tickets, don't wait. There are hundreds of thousands of guest houses, Airbnbs, and hotels down in Eastbourne. It's a seaside town vacation resort place. It's so cute and beautiful, and there's so much to see. Go ahead. If you're in America and you want to do the American Gsic, Galactic Spiritual Informers, we're going to be where George is right now, September 19th, 20, And 21st, Earth Peace Day. Earth Peace Day is September 21st. 19th, 20, and 21, Charlotte, North Carolina. Tickets are on sale today. Get yours, because goodness knows we also sold out our last American Gsic in Colorado, September 27th. So we are selling out fast. And put tickets up. They're going right now. They are the cheapest they're going to be. So we invite you to go ahead. All you need to know is galacticspiritualinformers.com. Galacticspiritualinformers.com. Well, George, let me just come back to you for one final loving message to the beautiful audience. What do you want to say, sweet love?
Well, I think the key word for me would be authenticity in the new earth. Is the more authentic we can be, the more loving we can be, and the
That's
more creative we can be.
totally true. Totally true. Thank you, George. And thank you guys out there, sending you love from my heart to yours. We'll see you soon. Get your tickets. Galactic Spiritual Informers. Love it.